I've told them you're coming. Now check-in is at 3, but they're trying to get
a room ready
whenever
first,
rooms free up. So hopefully,
yeah, I called them.
We'll have a little bit of luck
to see if I could get in a little
earlier. Yeah. So they know you're on the way anyway. What else was I going to say to you? You probably want to have a little sleep. Yeah. If you wanted to go into the city centre, the tram is from right outside the hotel.
Really?
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called the Luas, Luas, and
yeah, I know.
And the tram will take you right in to O'Connell Street, which is one of the main streets in the centre. If you like to have a walk, then it's a good 30 minutes walk from the hotel to O'Connell Street. And from there, then you can head up just a few minutes walk to, say, Trinity College, Grafton Street, etc.
We walked up through, well, 2 different ways.
Oh yes, you've been here before.
We've been through Kennedy. Yeah, we've been through Kennedy Park.
What are you going to do? Are you just going to relax this afternoon?
I'm going to relax. I'll be ready for this evening and to jumpstart the day tomorrow.
And dinner is, we have dinner at 6.
Okay. It's going to be in the hotel.
In the hotel, yeah.
Very nice.
So where the hotel is unusual because we go in on ground level, and then the reception lobby is actually on the 3rd floor.
Really?
Yeah. So you take the elevator up to the 3rd floor, and that's all the receptionists are there. And then there's another elevator that takes you up to your rooms.
Okay. All right. What's going on?
I'm packing my carry-on.
Your carry-on?
My carry-on, my backpack.
Where you been?
Where have I been? I've been all over. I've been Chicago. Actually, it's been an interesting week. I've been Chicago, Kalamazoo, Chicago, Newark, New Jersey, Copenhagen, and now I am in Dublin.
Where's Dublin?
In good old Ireland.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. What are you doing here?
Visiting pubs.
Yeah?
What are you doing?
I'm running a video camera.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You need to go outside and see our nice little private little patio area that we have.
Ooh.
It's our smoking area. I see cigarettes down there, so this is where people come out to smoke, probably.
I suppose, yeah. These are the back doors to the rooms at the hotel. Well, it's kind of neat.
And it's not cold. I mean, it's probably in the 40s here or so.
Yeah, it was
I'm
12 degrees centigrade.
I'm not cold
So
at all.
take 12 times 1.8, then add 32.
So it's pretty warm. They said they had snow here last week, though.
Yeah.
And they had winds and rain yesterday, all day long. So we'll see how it turns out.
So 18 plus 3.6. That's 18 plus 21.6 plus 32. That makes it about 53.
Get more information on your genealogy, and the museum is great. So all about Irish emigration, not just to the United States and Canada, but also New Zealand, also Australia. The Irish went all over the world. In the US or Canada was 5.5 years. The 80s, early 90s. That's when Ireland started to improve its economy immensely. Even when I finished studying in 1991, I went straight to London. There was no work here, absolutely nothing. And then the boom would have started around 94. That's when I came back, and as did thousands of us from all over the world. because you had the economic boom. All the high-tech companies,
That's really
Facebook, Apple,
amazing.
Google, Dell, they all started opening their European headquarters here in Ireland. So they rebuilt in a cheaper stone. So that's why it's the stone is different colours. It's not all that beautiful coloured stone. Another lovely bridge to the left of us, which kind of goes up and down, and that's the Sean O'Casey Bridge. He would have written works like The Plough and the Stars. He would have written a lot of plays and short stories. Ireland famous for its writers. Samuel Beckett, George Bernard Shaw, James Joyce, W.B. Yeats, Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde was Irish. Lovely view now there of the Customs House. It's Copper Dome. So as I said, 1792 that was completed. There's a train running up above us that goes from the north side to the south side of Dublin. It's called the Dart. So you'll see in Dublin city centre very few cars. Everyone uses public transport, and a lot of the roads will be pedestrianised. So, now the big bridge that we're coming up is O'Connell Bridge, and on the other side of the bridge there's a huge statue, and it's a favourite place for seagulls. He has a seagull on his head. On the far side of the bridge.
That's the bridge.
Dublin's Wax Museum here. As we swing right, you have Batman up there. And we're just approaching now Trinity College. And Trinity College would have been founded back in 1592 by Elizabeth I, Henry VIII's daughter. So we'll pass the entrance now. Oh, look at the sun's come out. Take about 400 photos now. Yeah. So this is all Trinity on the left. And you'll see a beautiful building straight in front of us, which was the old Irish Parliament. The Irish never ever stopped rebelling through the 700 years trying to get their independence. And there was one big rebellion in 1798. The Irish had been inspired, let's say, by the French Revolution. And so they had their own rebellion in 1798. And as a punishment then, Parliament here was shut down, and all power and all decisions regarding Ireland was reverted to Westminster in London. So this building is now the headquarters of the Bank of Ireland. So it would have been built at the end of the 1700s. Again in lovely Portland stone, so again brought over by ships from England, the high quality limestone. So we're just going to pass Trinity now. Trinity is here on our left, and it wasn't until the 1800s that Irish Catholics were allowed to attend, and even into the early 1900s they could attend as students, but they couldn't become fellows, they couldn't become professors. Of course now that's all changed. And there's the entrance to Trinity, and it's in Trinity where you have the world famous Trinity Library with the Book of Kells, a beautiful manuscript that was created in the 800s during what was called the Golden Age of Irish art. If anyone has been here before and said, where's the statue of Molly Malone? They've moved her down to the right. If you go down to the right, you'll have to walk there on the way back. She's right outside St. Anne's Church. Okay, so just here on the corner on the left, which is now the American College, Dublin, is Oscar Wilde's house. And we're going to pull in now. We're going to be a little bit naughty. We're not really allowed to do it, but we're going to pull in. And here on the left, you have a statue of Oscar. And one side of him looks like he's grinning, and the other side looks quite serious. And because Oscar was gay, and he was imprisoned for 2 years because of it, and sentenced to hard labour. And in front of the statue you have these little pillars with all the fantastic one-liners that he came out with, all his aphorisms. So quickie picky, quick photo.
But there's the statue of the gay guy, Oscar Wilde.
He was in prison for 2 years. The statue shows him grinning on one side and not on the other side. Famous for lots of his quotes.
And here's all his one-liners here on
That's pretty neat.
This sculpture, Oscar lived from 1854 to 1900. The sculpture was Danny Osborne, and he, like I said before, he has lots of quotes. We have them over here on another statue.
What's underneath?
Foresight.
Gallery here, National Art Gallery here on the right, 1864. And very shortly on the left, you're going to see a cute little monument just here on the left with the Irish flag, and it's in the shape of a military tent, and that is a monument to our defence forces. And just beside it here on the right, that's the Natural History Museum, or the Dubliners call it the Dead Zoo. Now, some typical features of Georgian architecture. If you look at the houses, you'll see over the doors there's a semicircle window. They're called fan lights because they look like a Spanish fan when it's opened, yeah? Some of, see this one here with the blue door just to the left, and the one next to it here, just at the end of the door, you have like these iron boot scrapers. Yeah, because you have to imagine back in the 17 and 1800s, there was no tar macadam, and all this was muck and manure, horses and carriages. So, you know, the women getting out in their ball gowns and their wigs, the big heavy wigs, the men and the women, and they go then and they scrape all the stuff off their boots and their shoes before they went in. And we think of it as an incredibly romantic era, but I mean the odour, I'd say, was just unreal. So the Georgian doors of Dublin are very famous. Some of you might have seen a poster of all the Georgian doors, and it was a New York photographer was sent here back in the 70s by the Irish Tourist Board in New York, and they wanted to put you know, some nice photography up in their window on St. Patrick's Day in New York to try and encourage people to book holidays to Ireland. So the photographer came over here and he just loved the doors. So he took a photograph of all the best doors and he made a collage, and that was put up then in the office in New York. And people, apart from becoming interested in Ireland, they all went into the tourist office wondering could they get a copy of the poster. So that's now one of the iconic posters of Dublin. If you got your DNA done, you might find that you have a little bit of Scandinavian in you. Might be a little bit of Danish or even Norwegian, that's from the Vikings. You might find you have a lot of English, bit of Danish, and you might find that you're a couple of percent Iberian, because the Celts, the Irish Celt, they believe that the nearest match to the Irish Celt was the Celts from Galicia in the northwest of Spain. So that would have been around Spain and Portugal. Now we're just going to see St. Patrick's, and they started it in 1191 and they finished building it in 1270. We are going to stop for a photo. And now when it would have been built, it was Catholic, But then, once you got into the 1500s, Henry VIII wanted to get rid of the first wife, Catherine of Aragon, after 24 years. Pope wouldn't give him a divorce or an annulment, so he broke with Rome and he introduced the Protestant faith, which had already taken hold in Europe. And what he did then with England and Ireland, with the churches and cathedrals, he either destroyed them or they were converted. So St. Patrick's was converted from Catholic to Protestant. Now Protestant is a bit confusing because in Ireland a Protestant church is called Church of Ireland, which a lot of people get confused because they see Church of Ireland and they presume it's Catholic, but it's not. It's actually Protestant. So, as I said, they started building in 1191. It's called St. Patrick because it's believed our patron saint would have baptized converts at a well nearby back in the 5th century, so over 1500 years ago. I'll be telling you more about St. Patrick later, but in the tour. But it has an amazing history. Jonathan Swift was probably the most famous dean of St. Patrick's, and he was the one that wrote Gulliver's Travels. And he's actually buried in St. Patrick's Cathedral. The choir of St. Patrick's Cathedral also took part in the first performance of Handel's Messiah back in the 1700s. And St. Patrick's Cathedral is hugely loved. People in Ireland couldn't care less what religion people are these days. And everyone loves St. Patrick's Cathedral. And on Christmas Eve, they sing all the different carols, the choir of St. Patrick's, and they put it on the television. So it's what every Irish family does, sits down with a few Irish coffees on Christmas Eve in front of the fire, switches on the television, and to watch the choir of St. Pat's. It's absolutely beautiful. Okay.
This is St. Patrick's Cathedral, is that right?
That's correct.
Wow. And it was built when? 5th century?
Something like that.
The college.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to see Christchurch Cathedral, which was built at a similar time, and so 12th century. Church on this site was built by the Danish king Sitrick. It was made of wood, and then when the Anglo-Normans came into Ireland in the 1170s, usually with invasions, they came in, they burned, they murdered, they stole, and then they went, oh, that was very naughty, we shouldn't have done that. So we built loads of churches to say we're sorry. That was the usual. Here on the left-hand side, just passing an exhibition on medieval Dublin, Dublinia. Originally, there were 4 different courts. You had the King's Bench, the Exchequer, the Chancery, and Common Pleas. So it's our High Court of Ireland. One of the most famous cases there was a good few years ago. It was a couple. They used to run a pub down in County Wexford, and she wanted to get rid of the husband, so she asked several people if they'd murder him. Just passing here on the left-hand side, the Brazen Head. That's the oldest pub in Dublin. It dates back to the 1100s. And she did. She found someone to do the job. And the husband was murdered, but because she'd asked so many people to get rid of him, there was a queue a mile long of witnesses, and so she was charged with murder, and she got life in prison. and life in Ireland is 20 years. So my parents were married 60 years last summer, and my mother said, "Remember your woman white?" And she said, "Tommy, I could have murdered you 3 times. I'd be out by now." It's actually a Catalan architect from Spain, from Catalonia. And now, very important place in Irish history here on the left-hand side. This is Guinness, it's the brewery. So that's where they've been brewing pints since 1759. And those of you going on the tour, you'll learn all about the history of Guinness is amazing. So from the early, the mid 1700s, and as I said, the Guinness family were very good to the people of Dublin. Do you know when women used to give birth in the hospital, because their iron count, you know, would go down a lot of the time? It was very normal. During my mother's time, all the mammies would be given a glass of Guinness every day in the hospital. Yeah. And if they were feeding the babies themselves, then the baby would be out for the count. Really well. You see a lovely building here now shortly on the left, which is Houston Station, built in the 1800s by William Dargan. He was the one that gave the money for the National Gallery. He was very good to his workers, and he paid them well, and if you got a job on the Irish Railways, you were lucky. And he would have been trained, because when he was young, he only had a bare education, but then he went over to England and he ended up getting work with Thomas Telford, one of the most famous engineers in the world. So he learned his trade from Thomas Telford, and then he came back to Ireland and he designed all the railways in the country. William Dargan was his name. If we see any deer today, they're descended from the original herd from the 1600s. Fallow deer, so they're very small. Now the park is also home to our Irish president. So when we leave the park, we'll be able to, there's a little gap in the trees where we'll be able to see the residence of the Irish president, Michael D. Higgins. It's actually his house, Oris on Uachtaráin, is called the House of the President in Irish, and it's very similar to the White House. So you have beautiful gardens here. This is where a lot of people come to walk, have picnics, play sport, and reflecting kind of the ancient history with the Anglo-Normans and later the English. You still have polo grounds, cricket grounds, and this is where the Pope John Paul II, when he became Pope, Ireland was the first country he visited. And with the famous, he came down off the plane, and you know, he was always famous for kissing the ground of the country he arrived in. And at the time, it was kind of I suppose the beginning of the highest point in, I suppose, Catholicism in the 20th century. Over 1.3 million people came to Mass here in the Phoenix Park when he visited in 1979. So we're going to try and head down to the Papal Cross, which was erected in memory of that. And the Phoenix Park is also home to the United States Ambassador's residence, Deerfield Park residence. And we'll go by the gates of the park. Claire Cronin from Grafton, Massachusetts. She's the American ambassador to Ireland. And you'll see an enormous monument very shortly on the left, once the trees clear, to the Duke of Wellington, Arthur Wesley. And he was actually born in Ireland. Gaelic games would be played here as well in the park. They play in the next pitch, they play there on the left hand side, They play Gaelic football and also hurling. Hurling is played with a stick made of ash traditionally, and a ball about the size of a baseball. And hurling is actually the fastest field sport in the world. It's amazing to watch. So if you Google any hurling match, Hurling, because the stick is called a hurl or a hurley. And the Celts played hurling. And Gaelic football then, and the difference between Gaelic football and football or soccer is that you can run with the ball, you can handle the ball a certain distance. And the scoring then is the same as for each sport. Like a goal is if you shoot it into the bar, into the goal, and then like rugby, if the ball goes over the bar, that's worth the point. 3 points then equal a goal. Now the monument straight in front is of a phoenix, and here to the right, that's the entrance with the beautiful gates there to the right, the entrance into the Irish presidential residence. This is the Phoenix Park, so the bird, the mythical bird, and this is the entrance into the residence of the US ambassador to Clare Cronin. Now Phoenix comes from the old word for the park used to be Fionishka, clear water, because there was a spring here, and so they called it Fionishka. And then when Ireland was still controlled by the English crown, they wanted to get rid of the Irish language, so they either directly translated the place names from Irish or Gaelic into English, or they made the words sound English. So clear water, Fionishka. They changed it Fionishka, Fionishka, Phoenix Park. The same as Dublin, the old word for Dublin, comes from two Irish words meaning black pool. So there's already a place called Blackpool in England. So they thought, right, no, we're not going to directly translate Dublin, we'll just make it sound more English. So Dublin became Dublin. Now this is the Papal Cross. So it's 161 feet high. And this is where Pope John Paul had Mass. And in the background you can see the Dublin Mountains. I know you think they're hills, but to us they're mountains. Then you have the 4 pillars, and the 2 pillars to the left. Can you see the light in the window? Yeah? So it's very typical in Ireland to say, you know, we'll keep the light on for you, or we'll keep a candle burning. So it's like anyone Irish or of Irish descent, not in the country. It's like we'll keep the light on for you. So.
When we were here last time, there was a lot of people.
Yeah.
And there was games going on.
Yeah.
And there she is, the spirit of the River Liffey. Not even a fountain on. The fluids in the jacuzzi. There's a good view now of the Guinness brewery. And you'll see our National Museum of Decorative Arts. And this used to be a military barracks for the British military. And then when Ireland became the Irish Free State, and back in 1921 a treaty was signed, and it was renamed after Michael Collins, one of our great heroes in Irish history, who fought for independence and lost his life during the Civil War. I'll be telling you all about Irish history as we go around the country. Don't want to bombard you quite yet. And here's the James Joyce Bridge again. So we're going to make our way down. We're on the opposite side now, and to the cathedrals, and we're going to make our way down and go up O'Connell Street and back down O'Connell Street and then over to...
When did she say these bridges were built, these old stones? like in 500 AD or something. No, 1500, I think it was. It's amazing. They're still intact.
Well, it has to be after the Romans discovered the arch for the support.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's erected at Dublin in the 2000s, and then a beautiful little bridge here completed in 1816, the Halfpenny Bridge, because before any of these bridges were here there used to be a ferry, and then the ferry company said they'd build a bridge if they could charge people to cross it, a halfpenny they crossed. So if you go over the Halfpenny Bridge and go through the archway, Merchant's Arch, that takes you into Temple Bar. That's where all the restaurants, the pubs, everything are located. There's also a load of them off Grafton Street as well. And then we're back now to O'Connell Street, O'Connell Bridge, and you'll see the big, huge statue of Daniel O'Connell. Very famous in Irish history because he achieved the right to vote for Irish people, so that they could actually vote in their own country. And so you'll see every city in Ireland has an O'Connell Street. He was nicknamed the Liberator, and he did it by peaceful means. I'll be telling you all about Daniel O'Connell. We'll actually pass the ruin of his house when we do the Ring of Kerry. He was a Kerry man. So the seagull has given him a break now. And the allegorical figures around the base. And we're going to pass the huge monument in the centre, the Spire of Light, erected just after the millennium, 2003. It's 398 feet high, and it's made of stainless steel, and it actually has 12,000 holes in it, so that the wind will blow through it rather than against it. The top can actually sway up to 4.5 feet, and it lights up then in the evening. The Spire of Light. So it's kind of, you know, that again, that into a new millennium and reflecting Ireland's struggle, and then it becomes a new modern country doing very well. So this is O'Connell Street, and any of you ever seen a film called Michael Collins? Fantastic. Well, the opening scene of Michael Collins is this building here on the left, the General Post Office. Back in 1916, Irish people fighting for independence took over the GPO, the General Post Office, because that's where all the telegrams would have been sent between the British government in Ireland and the British government in Westminster, so they wanted to cut communication. Parnell, who was an aristocratic, what we call Anglo-Irish, so he would have been of English descent, Protestant. So a lot of our great heroes were not Irish Catholics, they were Protestants, but they wanted their neighbours, their fellow men to have the same rights as they had. So Charles Stewart Parnell would have fought for Home Rule. He fell out of favour then when he had an affair with Kitty O'Shea, and in those days that was the end of his career. But he fought for Home Rule. So Ireland would have its own. As we go around Parnell Square, again named after Charles Stewart Parnell, you'd see the Dublin Modern Art Gallery, and then you'd see the Memorial Gardens on the right hand side. The Memorial Gardens are to all the Irish men and women who fought for Irish independence. So just if you look right, you'll see that there's a lovely monument to the children of Lear. It's a story from Irish mythology about 4 children who were turned into swans by their wicked stepmother, and it's all about kind of death and resurrection. And so the death of our Irish patriots and the resurrection of a new free country. St. Peter's Church here on the left hand, just past the entrance to the Memorial Gardens. Now we're just passing the Gaiety Theatre, so one of the most famous theatres in the country. They do a lot of Noel Coward, Oscar Wilde. And back down O'Connell Street again. So now we're going to head straight over to Trinity.
There's a pharmacy. And lots of them. Yeah. Burger King. There's McDonald's.
McDonald's right there too.
There? Here?
Yeah.
Where?
Right in front of you.
Oh. There are a lot of buskers at this corner, yeah? So,